Hello, Louisville media.
Go ahead, fire questions.
Well, I guess to start, what's your reaction to Nwora and Enoch coming back? Were you surprised at all, or what were your thoughts going in?
Well, I'm excited. I think that each of them went through a process to gain as much feedback as they could and to make the decision they felt like was best moving forward. And we're obviously a big recipient, and to have two of the better players in the league back for this coming season will certainly make us a more talented team, more experienced team, and so I'm really, really excited. I feel bad that Jordan really didn't have an opportunity at team workouts, at the combine, to really show what he could do. Everybody, I think, for the most part, that puts their name in the hat, so to speak, to go through the draft process, they do it with the goal in mind of getting drafted or, making that jump to the NBA. And that's it's what I dreamed about when I was a little kid. And, he really didn't get a fair shake. He had to sort of show who he was throughout the year. He had a terrific sophomore year. But I think he did make, in my opinion, an extremely mature decision. I think, I don't know what the percentages would be, but it seems like 8 out of 10 guys, if they knew they were going to get selected in the draft, that'd be good enough for them in 2019. Maybe 10 years ago, it's like, hey, if I'm not a first rounder, I'm going to come back to school. And so Jordan was very consistent in what he told me. And Coach, I didn't feel like I was going to be a first round pick. I'm coming back. Stephen was a little different. I don't think he was projected throughout any of the process of being drafted. But I think he wanted to find out what he needs to work on, what teams that did work him out thought of him. And, I think that Steve's been extremely motivated since he's been back, as has Jordan. So, again, really, really excited to have, what I consider two of the better players in the league back.
Coach, it would be an understatement to say that expectations among the Cardinal fan base have ratcheted up. And I'm assuming somewhat around this building, though tempered somewhat. So how do you embrace both those high expectations as well as deal with your players in terms of the grind out kind of stuff that they will need to do to meet those?
Well, I think you come to a place like Louisville because of those expectations. It's what I signed up for a year ago. I want to be at a place that's passionate about the sport of basketball, that wants to win a national championship. We're not going to run from those expectations. And I think that's why the guys that wear Cardinal uniforms, I think that's why they came here. To play in the biggest of big games, to compete for championships. And so those expectations are going to follow us. And that's okay. I think also making sure that our players are grounded in reality. And that reality is simply, we haven't done squat. It's all on paper. As I told Andy Katz on a podcast the other day, you could pull out last year's, preseason top 25, top 35, and you'd find a lot of teams on that list that didn't even make the NCAA tournament. So there's a lot of work between now and, November when we play our first game at Miami, Florida. A lot of work to do. We got a lot of newcomers to transition to our team, to learn personalities, learn how to coach them, teach them. But I'd rather be doing that with the talent that we have now as opposed to a year ago when we only had really 9 healthy scholarship bodies.
So what did you think of Luke and Vince both immediately after Jordan's announcement, kind of alluding to the Final Four?
I mean, it is what it is. And that's, again, we embrace those expectations. We have big goals. We're going to shoot for the stars. And I think this group has a lot of work, like I said before, ahead of them. But last year, the ending really left a bad taste. Hopefully, in all of our players' mouths, it certainly did mine. But we got a lot of work to do between now and when hopefully the tournament comes around.
Chris, with Steven, you said he's been working hard since he's been back. Did he get a chance to do some workouts with some teams and get feedback? And what was the feedback, or what does he need to work on again?
He did. I think that the speed of the game, which, again, both Jordan and Steven, I think, and they would probably tell you this as well, they need to be more consistent. I think with having a deeper team, with having more options, we're not so reliant on one guy to do something on a particular night in order for us to compete and win in a game. But the NBA game is completely different from the college game. And, Steven has to become, in my opinion, a consistent college player. A great force in the interior, a better rebounder, a more mobile ball screen defender. He just has to he has to be the same guy every single night for us. Jordan has to become more consistent as a ball handler. He became a better defender a year ago. I want to see him make another jump. I think he has to be more efficient in terms of shooting the ball and scoring the ball. But it's all about winning, and it's all about the college level. That other stuff, that'll take care of itself. I think sometimes guys, they get in that way of thinking, hey, what do I have to show the NBA? Just be a winner and worry about that process when it comes around. And for both of those guys, it'll have an opportunity to come back around.
Chris, throughout this process, was there ever a moment that you thought Jordan was going to stay in the draft?
Yeah, it sure was. But at no point did I ever feel like it was final. When I saw people out and about, I would say, they'd ask me, what do you think, Jordan? I said 50-50, and that didn't help them. They already knew that before they asked the question. But that's how I felt. And, I tried to give him my honest feedback. As a coach, he's going to look at me and say, obviously, Coach Mack's biased. He wants me to return to Louisville. But that wasn't the case in terms of, I told him that Louisville would be fine. We'd be a really good team. Without him, I wanted him to make the best decision with the accurate feedback that he got, and I wanted him to stick to his guns. Didn't want it to be a moving goalpost. What you told me on May 1st, I hope is true on May 29th when the decision had to be made, if that's what you really want. And I'll give him credit. Like I said, there's a lot of guys I think that they feel like their name's going to be heard on draft night. They're going to figure out a way to make it work. Some do. But a large majority of guys find themselves in all different types of countries and playing in the G League, making the same money that they could make a year from now, and quite honestly, not too much.
When did he let you know that he had made his decision, or were you sitting around like the rest of us kind of waiting for that 11th hour?
Well, I would tell you that I talked to his dad the night before. He called at midnight. They were in California. And I talked to him till about 1 a.m. And so that gave me a feel that there's serious grounds to him coming back. I really felt like his dad was asking questions and giving me information that was sort of finalized information because he was done with his sort of tryout period. The next morning, Amy contacted me and said, Coach, we want to have all the forms ready if that decision ends up being the decision to come back to school, because we're going to be traveling. We're going to be on a flight from California to Chicago, the layover Chicago to Buffalo. They weren't going to get in until around the deadline, and they didn't want to be stuck on a tarmac and not be able to get the information to the right people, dropping their agent, informing the NBA, informing our athletic director. So I started to get a sense, but it wasn't until 9:15 at Gustavo's over some shrimp nachos with my kids, and I had 5 ladies around the table going. My wife, Lainey, her friend, Haley, her friend. So I went outside, and then Card fan came up to me and goes, Coach. So I got to enjoy it before the rest of you all did for about 20 minutes.
Chris, and the process was new this year. Obviously, you won in the end because you got both of them coming back. A lot of coaches didn't. Is it a good thing to have it string out that long? And you were kind of, if you hadn't got those back, you would have been in limbo a little bit.
And there's so many different layers to answer that question. It's like, who are you serving? The NBA, college game, student athletes. I mean, it's just so hard to answer that question. You know, I've heard, why can't kids go through the draft, and if they don't get drafted, you know, return to school? Does that include guys that do get drafted? Are they allowed to come back? And, you know, would that be fair? I think Larry Bird got drafted years ago and still played the next year. So, yeah, I'm not smart enough to figure out the best way. You know, the fact that Jordan was able to have access to an agent who has a lot better relationships around the league is on one hand, I think, pretty good. And on the other hand, it'd be scary if the agent has a you know, predetermined way about it and sort of knows what he wants to do. But, you know, Jordan was in good hands. BDA, Bill Duffy and Associates, I thought did a really good job in their time, you know, they spent with Jordan. So
it seemed like the whole process was pretty much up and up, I guess. Did you ever feel like at any time either player had a bug or they from somebody trying to convince them what to do?
Sure. But I never felt like it was, you know, they were fighting. There was infighting going back and forth. You know, I let both of those guys sort of do their thing. I wasn't. I didn't want to be over the top. I didn't want to be, you know, constantly nagging. I mean, they have to get out there, and you know, ultimately, it really doesn't matter what I think if they're hell bent on, you know, going one way or the other. I told them my job is to love them, and I'm going to give them the best feedback I can. I'm going to tell them what I would do if they were my son. But ultimately, they have to feel great about the decision that they make. And so whether that's they're in the process for a week and decide to come back, or whether they take it down to 9:30 on the 29th, I'm going to be fully supportive of that.
When you look back to when you took over the program and looking at this roster, what did you kind of see in Jordan's progress, I guess, or process that got him to this point where he's considering the NBA draft?
From the time we got here, his body, you know, really made, you know, a remarkable change. You know, even before I got here, you know, his freshman year, I think when he showed up, you know, to now, you know, he looks like a player. He can really score. I think we all know that. You know, quick release, really good size. I don't think the moment gets too. Jordan hit some big shots for us down the stretch in some games. You know, as I tell him, sometimes he has too much confidence. But you know, I think that's hard to find. I don't think they're a handful of guys that shoot it better than Jordan that went through the draft process, especially at his size. I think if he continues to, as I said before, make better decisions with the ball, become a better defender, be more efficient in his scoring, then he's going to have a remarkable junior year, and he'll be in a much stronger position next May.
You mentioned the ending to last year, and with these guys returning, some newcomers, do you make any tweaks on how you approach maybe the style of play or practice or anything differently?
Sure. I mean, we're going to play a little different. You know, we still have 140 days until you know, college season starts. I think Rothstein said something like that. So, but I want to know what our guys can do. You know, I have 7 new players. You know, 2 of which won't even be here until after July 4th. So, for me to say, hey, this is what offensively we're going to be about. You know, I think at times we'll be 3 out, 2 in. Majority of times we'll be 4 out, 1 in. We'll be able to play both styles. I think we'll be able to extend a little bit defensively, just with the sheer number of bodies that we have. But to say that I know exactly how we're going to play next year, I'd be lying.
Who are the 2 that won't be here till after July?
David Johnson, who's got a little bit more academic work to do. And then Aiden Agahan, who doesn't graduate. You know, he's up in the Northeast until middle of June, so he just couldn't make it here for, I think, Memorial Day is around when we started summer session 2.
Coach, from what you have heard or talked to Jordan about, Was there anything that was different in the feedback he received from the NBA than what you gave him before he went through the process?
I didn't give him a whole lot of feedback before he went to the process. I think Jordan, being around me for 5 months, knows how I feel about him as a player and where I think he's got to get better. But again, NBA and college game are much different. How he's valued at that level, what they want him to do. If he'd have gone through a lot more workouts than he did, he went through one pro day for the agency that he was represented by, then he probably would have gotten even more feedback. But they basically had to go on what he did throughout the course of the season. There were probably a lot of general managers that didn't have a chance to see him play. And so that was probably a big part of his. I don't think he ever moved up the board and never moved down the board. He just sort of was on the board.
The academic stuff with David Johnson, is any of that something to worry about moving forward?
No. I have zero concern, with David being a part of our program. Zero.
How do you think the reinforcements this year will help Jordan as a scorer? Because you will have so many more options around the perimeter, especially.
I just think that you have more guys that can put the ball in the hole. We also have more experienced guys that, need to be able to show the way to our young guys. But we have more options. And I also think the guys that are returning, if they're doing their job, will become better players this offseason.
What kind of leadership do you expect Jordan and Stephen to show next year? Excuse me, with them coming back.
Well, the best teams, in my opinion, are the ones that are led by their oldest players. And we're going to find out a lot about, our team this summer and the leadership it possesses. But that's going to be really, really, really important. I think last year, without a doubt, our leader was Kristen Cunningham. Without a doubt. And I can't say, on June 3rd, 4th, whatever it is today, that this is our leader. Maybe I couldn't have said that a year ago. CC would only have been here a week. But it was pretty apparent by the end of the summer. So that's why one of the reasons I'm looking forward to this summer is to see who sort of emerges as an everyday guy and somebody that inspires his teammates. And we have guys that are all about the right things, but that leadership is going to be important with 7 new guys.
What do you want to see from Darius the next, 4 months or so?
Consistency, a lot less turnovers, be our best on-ball defender.
I think he's a better shooter than his numbers show. Are you concerned about his shooting? Does he work with his shot at all?
No, his shooting percentage is much better than he showed a year ago. I think Darius shot the ball pretty well in the last 10 games of the season. I'd say this if Darius were right here. Darius, he didn't know how to be an everyday guy. And I'm big on that. And I just think that if you show up and you're in a bad mood or things don't go well for you and you're different on different days, it's going to create some problems. And I think Darius had to learn the hard way. I give him a lot of credit because a lot of guys nowadays just put their name in the transfer portal and it's the coach's fault. And I'm sure there were some hard days for Darius to think, should I do that or not? But I was really proud of how he stuck it out in the last 10 games or so and became a guy that we had trust in putting in, because I didn't in the beginning of the season. And he sort of re-earned that. And I'm hopeful that he takes this off season to do what he did in the last couple months of the season, the last month of the season, be an everyday guy, compete at a high level, be our best on-ball defender, cut his turnovers way down, play with a higher IQ, and shoot the ball like he's more than capable of doing. And, I'm going to coach him just as hard as I did when he didn't like being coached hard. And, if he takes to it, I think he'll have a much better experience as a junior.
Newcomers who are here already, they've barely been here a week, but how have they been settling in? How much contact have you had with them on a daily basis? Because
guys were getting in all different days, whether it was Jordan coming back on Thursday or night. 2 of our incoming freshmen, because they still hadn't graduated, didn't get here until Wednesday. We didn't do anything basketball-wise last week. They still had to go through everything it takes to get cleared medically, compliance-wise, orientation, which around here as a freshman orientation, wow. I mean, 7:30 in the morning to 11 at night, and then 7:30 in the morning to 2:30 in the afternoon. Sam, after 3 hours, was like, "Coach, I don't know what else I need to be oriented." I don't either, but just get it done. So we had to go through all that, and so this is the first week that we've had any basketball workouts, and it's obviously only Tuesday. So we got a little ways to go before I can, But they're doing a great job with Coach Kettler. It's shocking to them, but it's good.
Anything else for Coach?
Sorry, I have to ask a recruiting question, but as you move forward in this season, the rules have changed. Is it going to be more difficult to evaluate guys with less days out there? I mean, you were out once in the spring and next week, I know.
A little bit. It's hard to comment on something without having gone through it. So to say, this new calendar with the high school weekends, and to say that it's a negative, that'd be unfair because we haven't gone through it. I get a little nervous because, we feel, and I've always felt that AAU, although it has its negatives, it's also a huge positive because you can be under one roof and see all the best players in the country in a matter of 2 or 3 days. And our AAU weekends and exposure went from this to this. So, it's going to be different, that's for sure. And it's up to us to figure out the best way to get the best players here at Louisville.
How long are you going to let the hair grow?
Mine? Is it out? Man.
Anything else? Thank you.